welcome everyone to week 6 installment of You and I Together, futuristic fun playing with 3D printers. I am Andrew Bingham, extension educator based in Ada County. My co-host and colleague is Lance Hansen. He is based in Rexburg, Idaho. So as usual, if you have any questions throughout presentation, just type them in the chat. Lance will keep an eye on that and he will ask them as we go along. So we will go ahead and we'll start off with our practical education you can trust, and that means showing a video. And today's video is 4-H youth development.
Idaho youth are learning about science, technology, engineering, and math through fun, hands-on activities offered by the University of Idaho Extension 4-H Youth Development. From straw rockets to robotics, and aerodynamics to drones, 4-H is preparing Idaho's next generation to solve tomorrow's problems.
So that is 4-H youth development. If you're not aware, that is ran through the University of Idaho Extension system. We are multifaceted, but no matter what facet that we are specializing in, we are an education source that you can trust. We are research-based. So we make nothing up on our own. All right, and time for introductions. As I mentioned previously, my name is Andrew Bingham. I'm a extension educator in the Family Consumer Science region of Extension. And within that subsection, I specialize in financial management. It just so happens that Lance, my counterpart, is one of the two others that specializes that in as well. I got a degree in financial economics, a master's in finance, so it's been a passion of mine for quite some time. My topics of interest within that area and programs that I specialize in are retirement/Social Security, investments, and then of course, I have some 4-H responsibilities, which is kind of a fun way for me to just pick up some personal interests, which have included ice cream and of course 3D printing. So one more thing, I almost forgot the most important. I'm a husband and father, so I always like to share. But we're going to just jump right into our activity. Before we do that, what I have here is, well, has anybody seen one of these? You know what it is? It is a 3D pen. So it's not a super complicated mechanism. That's all it is right there. If you were here in person, what I would do is I would hand these out to the class and we would play with it. And the way these work is, the best description I've heard, it's like a fancy glue gun, right? So what happens is you take the filament, which is the input for 3D printing, and you stick it in, and there's a little gear inside this pen that pulls that filament through, and it pushes it through this tip right here. And this tip right here, it's ceramic, but it gets really hot. Like we're talking 120 degrees Celsius, not 120 degrees, hotter than that, but hot enough to melt plastic. And that's all it does. It just melts plastic and it pushes it out, kind of like a hot glue gun would. And then you kind of design a structure the way that you want it to. Unfortunately, we can't meld those, but what we can do is try and do something similar with our pipe cleaners. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our pipe cleaners and we are going to build something. And I'm going to give you a challenge as to what we're going to build. We are going to build an octopus. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. I know that's not a real long time, but let's see how good of an octopus you can make with pipe cleaners in about 5 minutes. And I'll go ahead and I'll do this with you. So there's really no right or wrong way when you're dealing with pipe cleaners. I think with me, I'm probably going to start with 4 of them. I'm just going to kind of, I don't know. Octopuses are pretty simple, right? It's a ball with 8 legs. There's a few reasons I chose an octopus, but one of the reasons is because octopus, or octopi, however you say it, are very good at camouflage, right? So what color is an octopus? Well, just about any color it wants to be, right? So mine is green. I only have green pipe cleaners. But hey, sometimes they might turn green, right? All right. So if you have a project going on, if you're following along, go ahead and turn on your camera if you don't mind and just share your progress. So far, I got a lot of spindly legs here. Ooh, I like it. I like the Callum. Hopefully I'm saying that right. The Callum kids have some good octopi going there. All right, we probably have about 3 more minutes left. Again, not a lot of time, but fortunately it's not a real complicated structure to make. Again, when I teach these classes in person, I make the same challenge to the participants, right? I let them use the 3D pens and I tell them, all right, make an octopus. I'm not gonna lie, this is probably easier working with pipe cleaners than it is working with those 3D pens. All right, so I feel like I got sufficient legs. Head's gonna be a little bit tricky, right? Oh yeah, I'm struggling with the head. Maybe those of you who attended earlier sessions about the art classes and the sculpting, maybe you have a leg up. If not, I encourage you to go back and watch some of those. And mine so far is just looking more like a messed up spider. About a minute longer. Okay, mine's a very flat octopus so far. Maybe a starfish. It looks more like a starfish. 8-legged starfish. All right. So there's mine. Really no head to it at all. Given a little more time, maybe I could have figured it out, but I'm sure I'm looking at some of these on the screen. They look pretty good. Nice. I like that one. I like the different colors on it. So, nope. And Lance, of course, has his octopus right there. Lance also has a 3D printer. But another reason I do is because I've actually already printed a 3D octopus. See, Lance has one too. This is one of the popular ones. You can see his little arms are moving there. It actually prints that way, right? And so that's one of the cool things that printers can do. They can take, something that we can mess up, like this ugly octopus, and it can do it. Ooh, I like that octopus a lot in the Callum household. That's way better than mine. Almost looks like a Halloween one. But better than anything I can do, the 3D printer can do it much better. So this is a pretty popular one. I always enjoy showing this to the kids after they've tried making their own with a 3D pen. What else can we do? This is a snake. As you can see, it's got a lot of bendy parts. It prints that way. I don't actually have to put anything together. I changed the filament out a little bit of the way through so you can actually see that the bottom's a little bit lighter. So kind of true colors to a snake, or as true as it gets. So there you go. And then my favorite one of all is this guy here. It looks like an armadillo, right? But it's actually pangolin, and it can curl up in a ball. And again, it prints just like this. So do the wave. So there's lots of different cool toys, knickknacks that you can print. And maybe if we have time, we'll go ahead and look at some of those at the end. But when it comes to 3D printing, one of the first things that you need to know is the kind of filament or the things that go into a 3D printer. And so what filament is it's essentially plastic, right? So again, This isn't quite as fun when it's virtual. I'd be handing these spools out and we'd be holding them and touching them throughout the class. But right here is what is used to print 3D printers. There's a lot of different types of filaments. This one's kind of cool. I don't know if you can see that, but it's different colors. So the longer it prints, the more different colors the print comes out in. So layers will kind of change colors as it goes on. But they come in different colors. Here's another one. Again, just plastic thread. Thick plastic thread is all it is. This one glows in the dark. So they do lots of cool things. This one's shiny. That's what this guy right here was made out of. This one right here, this one, so everything I've just shown you is a filament called PLA. And it's actually food-based, right? Whenever I say it's food-based, the kids are always like, can I eat it? Can I eat it? And the answer is I don't recommend it, because even though it's food-based does not mean it is 100% food. The coloring and the dye that goes into it is probably not good for your body. Right here, I have one that is like a rubbery plastic. So I don't know if you can see that, but I can like tie this in knots. And what it prints out is like a rubber. That being said, it's pretty difficult to print with. It gets really messy because it likes to stick to itself. And then this one is just a plain white one, but it's called ABS. So if you're just to touch it and look at it, it would look exactly like the PLA. But once you start to print with it, it's a little bit different. It stinks a little more. It's a little bit hard to work with, but this is actually what Legos are made out of. So could you make your own Legos with a 3D printer? Yeah, you could actually. It would take a while and it'd be a little difficult, but it is possible. So those are the components that go into a 3D printer. And what we're going to do now is I actually have some 3D printers set up in the other room, and we're going to go take a look at those. And while I do that, Lance is going to launch a poll for the adults to answer. But you'll see me here in a minute. Okay, so go ahead and take a minute or two to fill that out. I am set up in another colleague's office. He no longer works here. He left for another position, so I'm taking advantage of the extra space. These printers are a little loud, not too bad, but I didn't want them being too distracting. What's that?
What kind of things are you printing back there today?
I have two running right now, and one hopefully will be done. And maybe if we have time, I'll let you watch it finish. It is mesmerizing. I have a 6-year-old who absolutely loves watching the 3D printer just function. It's a pretty neat tool. I have 4 3D printers in this room. They're all a little bit different from the next one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll my table over here to the first one. I apologize if the screen gets rocky. Hopefully you don't get motion sick. All right. So this right here is what a pretty normal 3D printer would look like. So remember when we are making our octopus, I mean, we're kind of all over the place, right? We don't really have a real good organization. If you're using 3D pens, that would be the case even more so. But when it comes to 3D printers, they can move in very precise movements in 3 different directions, hence the 3D. So it can move forwards and backwards. If you can see that plate right there. It can move side to side, and it can move up and down. And the way this works is there's motors. So I got a motor here, and I've got a motor here. And it twists these little spindly things that move the rod up and down. There's a motor back behind here under the plate that you can't see, but that's the one that moves this one. Right here is the motor that moves it left and right. And then this motor right here just pulls the filament in. And what it does, and you can't see it too well, I'll attempt to take this webcam off. And again, apologize if you're getting motion sickness. But right under here, this thing that my pinky's pointing at right there, that's the hot end. And that will get over 200 degrees Celsius. That is over 400 degrees. So that thing gets 400 degrees hot and then some, and it melts the plastic and then lays it in a very specific pattern. So imagine you're drawing with a pencil and you draw one layer, and then you get a piece of paper and you draw another layer, and you just keep stacking those until you have a whole structure. Now, to put that into practice, or to show you what that looks like in real time, over here I have another 3D printer, and this one's actually running. So this one right here is similar to the one you just saw, just a little bit smaller, right? Smaller doesn't necessarily mean worse. It means you can't print things as big, but that's okay. A lot of things you don't need to be really, really big. So you can see the filaments going in here. Like the other one, I've got a motor up here. My hand there. I got a motor right here. And behind here, I have the motor that pulls in the filament. And then again, another motor that's moving it back this way. So as you can see right there, we are printing something. And you can see it moves very precisely, left and right, back and forth. Does anybody want to guess what I'm printing right now? Turn it sideways if we need to. What's it look like? Do you have any guesses in the chat, Lance?
Frog?
It is a frog. This frog has been printing for almost an hour, and it will be done in about 20 minutes. So unfortunately, we won't quite see the end, but you can see how detailed it gets. And again, if you were here in person, I would hand a print around, and you can actually see the lines in the frog itself. So it prints layer by layer. Why do you think it does that? You don't know? Because if it printed from bottom to top, then it would have nothing to print on, right? So it needs to print on something, which means it prints one layer, and then the second layer will print on the first layer, and then the third layer will print on the second, so on and so forth. So it will always build from the bottom up. All right, and I've got one more printer, and this printer over here is really different. It's not as popular. It's called a resin printer. Okay, we have a question. What's the question?
Yep, go ahead and ask your question.
Could you build a paper plane by 3D printing?
You can build planes. You can build things that go on 3D on paper planes. So yes and no, I guess, to answer your question. You could probably build something that looks like a paper plane, but it might not fly as good as a paper plane, if that makes sense.
Oh.
Good question, though. All right. And then over here, this is called an emulsion or a resin printer. And the way this works, I don't know if you can see it right there, but right here you have a little mechanism that moves up and down. And what it does is it dips a tray inside resin. And then right down here, I'm going to lower this for you, it flashes a pattern and a UV light, and that pattern hardens the resin. So it also does it layer by layer. But the difference is these 3D printers that you saw earlier, it's like drawing with a pen layer by layer, right? This one, it's like making a stamp layer by layer. And so it goes a lot faster, but it's a lot messier. This resin that's in here stinks really bad. My wife does not like it when I open up a bottle of resin and try printing with it at home. One more reason I'm in my colleague's old office and not mine. but it prints faster if they are shorter prints. So right now what it's printing is the pangolin, a miniature version that you saw earlier. It is cool, but it's a lot messier and you have to do some maintenance with it after it comes out because it's dripping with this yucky stuff on it. So you have to wash it off and then you have to put it under a light to make it hard. So that one's a little more complicated, but it's still fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask a few questions and I want you to think about the questions. Sorry. While I move back to the other PowerPoint. But how do you think 3D printers could make our futures better? So in what ways could we use 3D printing to make a better future? So go ahead and think about that. You can type your answers in the chat or you can raise your hand and Lance will call on you.
Go ahead.
It can make more stuff in the future?
Yes, you can definitely make a lot more things. What else do you think?
I don't know. That's all I could think.
We could
Well, you're
just,
not wrong. I did hear that answer before I left the other office. You can make more stuff. And they're always coming up with more and more ideas. So let me pull up the other PowerPoint again real quick.
Build models for technology is one of the responses.
we could
Yeah.
make printers and then we won't have to make lots of things in factories because we can just make them in the 3D printers.
Yep, we can build the things we need at home
Mm-hmm.
with the 3D printer, and we would have to go buy them at the store.
There are a lot of cool knickknacks and toys that you can make. So we're about out of time. So I'm going to give some answers that they're actually working on right now. So what are some things they can do with 3D printing? Well, they are actually building houses using 3D printing. So this house right here was made with a 3D printer. You can kind of see the lines. They went layer by layer. And then they just installed the doors and stuff afterwards. Another example of a house that was 3D printed. You can see that one was layer by layer. This one was they used mud. They basically have a machine that will lay mud down layer by layer. And you can see kind of a dome shape. And you end up with this house that you can actually live in. This is a home that was 3D made. You can't really tell because it's the first level here. And then they put like a shipping container on top of it and kind of modified it to be a home. This is actually in Austin, Texas. And here's another example. Again, the top wasn't made with a 3D printer, but these bottom floors were. And then I don't know if this might not work. So you can kind of see that's them working on it. People obviously have to supervise it, but that little thing right there, it shoots out the concrete, the mud, or whatever it is that they are choosing to build that house with. All right, and another way 3D printers make a better future, they actually do prosthetics. And if you don't know what a prosthetic is sometimes people will lose arms or limbs in an accident, or in a lot of instances, kids are born with limbs. And so what people are figuring out is they can actually 3D print prosthetics. They can print arms, fake arms, to replace the limbs that they don't have. And so as you can see right here, this kid doesn't have an arm for one reason or another, and they've actually been able to 3D print him one. Right? So there they got a little mechanism that he's able to strap it on to his shoulder there. Here's a little girl. You can see that she's missing a forearm there, but now has a cool pink one to replace it. And one of the reasons this is really cool is because prosthetics are really, really, really expensive, and kids will outgrow them really fast. But now that they're able to 3D print them, they can make them at a fraction of the cost. So once the kids outgrow them, well, they'll just print a new one for them. This is a cool one here. This kid is a big Iron Man fan. And so they printed him one, and I wish this video was working. It's just a GIF, but This one they've actually managed to power with electricity. So he can actually open and close his hand. And they also even do some cool legs as well. So with that, that is all we have today. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. But in the meantime, we encourage you to take a picture of or use your QR scanner to open up a survey here, or you can find the bit.ly link in the chat. All right, we've got a question. Go ahead and ask.
Can you print like everything with a 3D printer?
You can print a lot of things. I don't know if you could print everything, but
Well, I can't print a screen.
can you print a screen? You could probably print the things that the screen would go in. All right, do we have 3D printers for people to use at home? So I do have grant money for 3D printers. We have not reached that stage of the grant yet where we have reserved ones, but, and again, I don't know where the Osborne family is located. If you do have requests for a 3D printed item, Caldwell, okay, so not too far from me, you can reach out to me in my email and we can discuss what it is you want printed. I also know that local libraries typically have printers that they don't lend out to the public, but the public can use them, so they can put in requests for printers and stuff like that. I was actually just out in Homedale, and Homedale has a library, or has a printer similar to the big one that you saw, and they actually take requests from the kids, and I guess adults for that matter, and they print, you know, whatever it is they're requesting. That being said, their wait list was really long because they're really cool, right? So yes, you can go to your local library, or you could hit me up as well. There is a website, and again, I put the bit.ly link for the survey in there, but there is a website. It's called thingiverse.com. And I just put that into the chat as well. And what Thingiverse is, it's an open source website where people can actually create these 3D files, and then they put them on this website, and you can go and download them. And then you do what's called splicing. It's not as complicated as it sounds, but you set it up on your computer, and then you put it onto a USB drive or a memory card, and that slides right in the printer, and it's off to the races. That's where all these prints that you saw me hold up earlier, just drop the other one. The octopus came from there, the snake came from there, and all those files are free to download. So another great thing about it is it's relatively low cost. A filament roll like this will cost about $20, $25, but it will last quite a while. The octopus here probably took less than 25 cents worth of filament. So it goes pretty far. We'll hang around for a little bit, but we will go ahead and we will stop our recording